Hopefully I am live. All right. Give me one moment. Give a little time for people to join in. All right. Good evening, everybody. Dave here from Lionel. So this is the third episode of Demos with Dave. Tonight is a little different. I'm going to be doing the episode from home. Honestly, I'm hoping this will be a one-time thing because setting up the trains at the office, having them on different loops and stuff on the layout is a little easier than trying to get them all to shuffle in between one test track here on my bench top. So I do have a layout down in my basement, but I actually just bought my house this year, and the layout is modular. I had to tear it apart from my last home, and it's still in pieces because, when you buy a new home, there are other things that are a little bit more priority than your layout. So hopefully one of these days, this winter maybe, things get a little colder outside, I can get down there and start bolting the layout back together and get running trains again. But anyways, let's get into talking about our steam engines tonight. Last episode I talked about diesel engines. This time I want to talk about steam engines. I have a couple that are out of the 2020 big book, and then I also have a couple that were cataloged last year as well. Most of these are ones that are shipping now or shipping before the end of this year, so they're relevant to the product that you'll either be getting in now or be getting in soon. So it's nice to show those products. What I'm hoping to do eventually with this new show is show people things like sounds and features prior to the catalog order deadline date. So then that way, hopefully you can see the features and the sounds, and that'll help you decide on putting in your built-to-order request. We do have a lot of our high-end stuff that is built-to-order, and the dealers do order extras, but sometimes do still run out of stuff. I myself do built-to-order, not just with Lionel, but other companies as well. And I just know that at the end of the day, you budget for it, and you'll get it. So that's what I recommend to people. Anyways, moving on from me blabbering about nonsense, let me get talking here about the trains. Now I'm actually holding the tripod. I will flip the camera here on the phone and then stand the tripod up. And there is the first guy we're going to demo today. So I figured I would have the... Oop, and there goes my feet kicking the tripod. Wow, I do miss the layout at work. Anyways, I figured since last Monday, Ryan unboxed and showed off the details of the Brass Hybrid 440s and accompanying passenger cars, that today I would show the technology features as well as the sounds. I can't obviously run it around a track or a loop, but I can at least let you see the slow speed operation, and yeah, let's get working. Now I have the Leviathan sample here with a Central Pacific car behind it. These are just samples that I have. That doesn't mean that these are the ones that go together. These are just what I have available to me in engineering. So obviously you're going to want to match up your road names on your cars and your engines and all that jazz. But this one, all the sound sets in the passenger cars that are going with these engines are for the most part the same, with the differences being fuel types in the tenders, and some of the crew chatter has different dialects based on the region of the road name. So let me start this one up and we can start playing with it here. There we go. Now, the run program switch is actually underneath this toolbox here on the tender, and then the passenger car also has one round in here. Now what I recommend you do is program these both as the same TMCC ID number. You can run these over your LCS sensor track. The tender on these has the sensor track. So it will program all the information into your legacy remote when you go over the sensor track. The other option is if you are entering this in manually. We did have to use the BEMC instead of the regular RCMC in this engine, simply because these engines were so small that we could not fit regular legacy electronics in them. And that's the same reason that we had to put the sounds in the passenger car instead of in the engine, just because there just was not enough room for the standard electronics. So since we had to put the BEMC in this engine, what you want to do is program these under the setting Flyer Pull More Steam. Now this doesn't mean that it has a Pull More engine, it doesn't mean that it's an American Flyer engine. This is just the setting in the remote that gives you the correct settings for speed step, etc., and that it knows that it has a BEMC instead of an RCMC. Now, it'll still run as a standard Flyer, or I'm sorry, a standard legacy steam engine, but it won't have quite the specific control that you use the Flyer Pull More Steam for. So yeah. The sound sets are very similar to a standard legacy steam engine. You have your crew talk.
Engine to dispatcher. There's up and the crew's on board. Are we clear? Roger that. Take the green. Over. Thank you much. All clear, moving to the outbound. Out.
Now, it was funny because someone mentioned, well, why didn't you do period-specific crew talk for these? Well, they didn't exactly have radios in the 1800s, did they? So there was no point in recording period-specific crew talk for something that didn't have radios anyways. So, since crew talk is kind of a play feature anyways, we just put the standard stuff in this guy. Now, I will say the couple of things that we did customize for the sound sets. One is the whistle, so I'll throw it here. Now, this is an actual recording from one of the replicas. I can't remember right now if it was from the Jupiter or the 119, but it is an actual recording from one of those two engines, one of those replicas. And it's the same whistle that we used in the Lion Chief version of our 119 and Jupiter set as well. Obviously this one quills. It has the 3 different quilling levels based on where you pull the whistle down on the cab 2 remote. So that's cool. The bell, we made sure to use an old style bell in which you can... it's not a perfect cadence because you would be ringing the bell by hand, the engineer would be. So kind of simulates a real bell swinging, not one that's steam or pneumatic powered like you might find on more modern steam engines. There's no smoke in these guys because that was not going to fit. I really like the very large stack on some of these engines. I know it's for spark arresting based on the fuel type used. But simply there was just no way with this tiny boiler to fit any kind of smoke unit in these. Which is, it would have been great to throw all those features in here, and maybe someday we can miniaturize the electronics enough to do so. But for now, these make excellent models with excellent detailing, as Ryan went over a week ago in his show. And we tried our best to give some fun accompanying sounds with these. So let's move it now. It helps if I don't crank the throttle all the way up. So yeah, that's cool. Again, short track. Sorry I can't run it more for you. But one last thing, we customized on the dialogue. These engines had a mix of coal or wood as the fuel in the tender. This one here I have set up for wood. So if you hold on the reset button, you get the refueling sequence. That's not something we've never done before, was wood on the refilling sequence, so that's pretty cool. I thought it was neat. Alright, so let me move on. These are great engines, and again, I really, if you haven't seen it, I suggest you watch the video from Ryan last week, when he unboxed and went through the details and the history of these engines. I'm just the guy that makes it go choo-choo. Alright, let's switch one over here. This is real fun reaching over the camera and tripod trying to do this. Alright, next up, we got the B6SB. A little Legacy 060 switcher. These were in the 2020 Big Book. Gotta turn the power back on. There, when you get all the wheels on the track, it runs a lot better. Alright. Pennsy B6SB. Now this one is the Bethlehem Steel version. Again, just the deco sample that I had handy. Yes, I saw that, Ethan. I got it. It's tough when the camera tripod's in the way. So, these have the new Legacy electronics in them. The same as the T1 here, as well as the GSs that are currently in production. I do see somebody asking about the GSs, and those are going to ship, I believe, somewhere near the end of November. So, let's go over the features in this guy. Now, unlike the GS and the one SKU of the T1 I have here, these do not have the bicolor marker LEDs. And the reason for that is because the Pennsy simply didn't do that, at least not after a certain year. I forget the exact year, but I believe it was in the 40s. Ryan can comment on that, I'm sure he's on. So instead, what we've been going with on our recent Pennsy offerings has been these marker lights that have red here that are facing the front, and then amber that are facing the insides and outsides, and then the tender is all red as well. And that's because that was prototypical for what the Pennsy did. And we just carried that to the other road names here on the B6s. So that is one feature that you'll see in the GS and in the T1 that the B6 does not have. But this B6 does have the 5 different whistles, like our new electronics support. So the default here on most of these is the Banshee. And we used that for the first time on the last run of the B6s we did. It was 2015, 2016 time frame. And that whistle really is nice. People like that whistle. I know it's one that I really like, and it just sounds good on this little engine. But obviously we have 4 others to choose from. Now we have a couple variations of the Banshee here, either pitched up or pitched down. That way you have some variance if you got more than one B6. So that's a pitched up version. That's a really pitched up version. There's a pitched down version. And that's the other Pensy whistle, in case people want that. So I believe we used that whistle on the M1 quite a number of years ago. And we'll be bringing that back as we offer more Pensy engines now that we have the room for 5 different whistles. Another feature that these have in the new Legacy Electronics, again, is the aux3 key. If you press aux3, you do get a sound effect. Now, in basic road names, it's just like an air let-off on this guy. But we also offered a Christmas version of the B6, and that one will play a Christmas sound. So it depends on the road number or road name that you picked. You'll get a different sound. Obviously, we got electric couplers. The thing smokes like its whistle, you know, a Banshee. And then these also have the wired drawbar. There's a tether in between the engine and the tender. The biggest reason for that tether is to simply spread out the electrical footprint of the engine so that these more reliably go through switches. If you are only relying on the very small electrical footprint of the engine, they can stall out in switches or even on dirty track. But if you combine the electrical footprint of the engine and tender all together, then it makes for much more reliable operation. So that's the B6. And I believe Ryan said that these got here and will be shipping soon. So excited about this one, and hope you that ordered them will like the different whistle options and all the other update electronics in these. Alright, let's take this guy off. Alright, next I want to talk about one that people have been waiting for quite a while now. These were first cataloged, I think, in 2019. Was it Big Book or C2? I can't quite remember, I apologize. But this is the LC 2.0 Docksider. This is the 060T. Now, the engine I have here is an engineering prototype. This does not have any finalized deco or anything. This was simply for us to use to develop the new mechanical that was required, as well as tune the engines, tune the sound system. So it's just painted a flat black with some different color detail parts on the front. But it did what we needed it to. Now the trick is remembering what number I programmed it as. Number 2. Yeah, I got it right. So one great thing about this engine, I actually started working on an LC2 version of it 2.5, 3 years ago. These needed all new electrocoupler design. We could not fit a standard electrocoupler into these simply because of how low it is to the track, and there was no cutout to accept an electrocoupler. We also had to design an all-new smoke unit. These smoke units are fan-driven, and it's based on the SGSU, which is the smoke unit we use in our American Flyer engines, but it's actually even smaller than that so that it could fit in this very small boiler. So most of the time when we say add 20 drops to your smoke unit to keep from overfilling it, and that's typically a conservative number just because it's really bad when you overfill a smoke unit. In these engines, 20 drops, I mean 20 drops. Please don't add more than 20 drops or you're going to overfill it because it's a very small smoke unit. But it still operates just as great as any of our other smoke units. And very proud of how it came out. Now, these have LC2, LC plus 2.0 announcements and control in them. So they don't have the speed steps of 200 like a legacy engine does. They are instead a TMCC engine, so they have 32 speed steps. And you want to make sure that when you get an LC 2.0 engine, that you program it into the remote as a TMCC engine. So you can program it here as either TMCC mode, or you can program it under cab 1. I like TMCC, and then I have it set at Steam and Real Sounds 5, because that's equivalent. But that gives you the icons here on the remote. So you get the volume control, you get the crew talk buttons, smoke on, off, etc. Oh, yeah, more than 2, no. You might be running the risk of burning up your smoke unit if you're only using 2 drops of smoke fluid. Yeah, add 20. Anyway, back to this guy. So, these guys have the ramping headlight feature, which I really like. And, again, the electric couplers on the front and rear. Yeah, I forgot. So this guy has the Christmas sounds in it. So when you fire an electric coupler, it gives kind of a squeaky toy sound effect, which is funny. And then Santa as the engineer character.
We're cutting it close. Can I get a signal? Get ready to take off. It's time to fly.
And then Santa is the 2 key. If you press the 7 key, which is normally tower comm, we actually put in different sounds in there. So for the Christmas version, the sounds are randomized. I think that's supposed to be one of those jumping jacks.
Tighten up those bells on your shoes.
Anyways, you can have fun with your Christmas sounds. You get blow down. You do get fuel fill here. There's also water fill. And let's run it up and down the track. Now, again, these don't have the same slow speed operation as like the B6 we just reviewed. And that's because these are LC2, which is TMCC, so they don't have the same slow speed operation. But I would still say for an LC2 engine, that's pretty good speed. See how many people I can make nervous by running it to the end of the track. Now, being an LC2 engine, this doesn't have 5 different whistles. This has the same whistle, but with the 5 different pitch levels. So this one actually has, I believe, the Banshee for every whistle level. then also the bell, we put like sleigh bells instead of a standard bell. And even the bells have the 5 different pitch levels. And just as a reminder, the bell and the whistle, you can go through those on the Cab 2 or a Cab 1 remote using aux 1 and then the bell or the whistle. Or if you're using the Lion Chief app on Android or iOS, you can use the pitch sliders for changing. Those are in the sound menu in the app. Because all the engines here, with the exception of the Brass Hybrid 440, all of these do have Bluetooth. Alright, so let's move on to the last guy here.
That's it for this Christmas delivery. Santa needs a warm bath and some eggnog.
Santa's needy. Alright, let's move this guy off the track. And just give me 1 minute here to get this big guy on the track. I don't think we're going to be able to run this much back and forth, but so this is the T1. This is the steam engine based off the Reading 2100 series, 2101? Or 2101 is this engine. But it's Rambler, basically. But this is the What If Conrail scheme. They actually, I believe, mocked up some artwork for it, and it just never happened. Now, Ryan can talk about the history on that. One, he's good with history like that. He did work at the Train Museum in Pennsylvania for 87 years. But he also is a Conrail fan. And I absolutely abhor it, but that's just my personal taste. But I will say the blue on these looks really nice. I do like that blue. But this is the T1. And again, let me try and remember the number I had it on. 21?
This is the tower. Make a pull to the pit to top her off. Over.
Copy that, dispatcher. Standing by. Out.
All right. Oh, Marty, that's a terrible joke. Oh, man. Conrail. I'm just going to shut the show off now. That's terrible. Alright, so let's go over the engine first. This shares new electronics similar to the GS. So this has 5 different whistles, 5 pitch levels on the bell. And this one here, SKU specific. The regular T1s do not have markers on the front of the engine by prototype, but they do on this Conrail version, the What If Conrail. And so these are by color. So holding down aux 2 when you're on the engine brings up the lighting menu. And the one here that says T, the T means tender. So that's the lights, if this engine were to have tender marker lights back here, which this one does not, but if they would, that would be the buttons to control that. But the ones here in the middle are the ones for the engine marker lights. So if you press, default is green. If you press the on button, you will get white. See? So that's cool. So you can change your marker light color from green or white. Or if you just press off button, obviously they turn off if you're just running a regular train. So I think that's pretty cool. I really enjoy the bicolor marker lights. moving back. Oh boy, let me just turn this thing. I hope I'm not making anybody camera sick here. I think this is the only engine I showed tonight that actually has whistle steam. You can see it coming out of there. My silly self forgot to bring any smoke fluid home, so I can't top these guys up, unfortunately. You get the picture. And, so, for fun, let's go through the whistles. This is the default whistle, which is the T1 whistle. And, I believe we got an actual recording of the 2100 last time. It was right before last time we ran these, which is 2016, I want to say. Back when we did the Vision Line GG1. So, cool. And then I think we did a toned down version of the same whistle, yep. And then we have a few other whistles. Might be hard to hear if you're watching, but here at home, the volume difference between this engine and the previous three is astounding, and that's because this has dual speakers in the tender, and it really makes a huge difference on the volume level. Yeah, it sounds really good. All right. So, last but certainly not least, I wanted to turn down the volume of the engine, first off. But then I want to talk about the auxiliary tender. Now, this is one of the Vision auxiliary tenders that we're doing. I believe that this one was part of the T1 Conrail version artwork as well. I know I've seen some mocked up artwork for it that was not Lionel, so there's something out there that has this artwork on it. Again, Ryan's best to explain Conrail stuff. But we did other schemes as well. Many of these to go with the GS's, daylight version. And then we also did just a flat black version that you could add your own railroad onto if you want. But this is the second time we've done a Vision Line version now of an aux tender. We did it last year, it was the Union Pacific one. So these actually have a completely different set of audio in them. Now, what I did was program the engine as ID number 21, and then I programmed the aux tender as ID number 22, and then I built those into a train. Let me show you on the remote. And, well, I just broke that. Again, info. You can go into build and you can see. So, there's engine 21, which is the T1, and then the aux tender I have programmed as a Freight Sounds car in the type. And if you are buying one of these, just reference the manual and it'll tell you how to program these. And then the chain link up here, that is so that you can use the train link button. So then after programming those with those IDs, I then built them as train 1. And so that's what I now have connected, right? So when you're on the main page of your train, you get all the icons for the locomotive, right? If you press the train link button, it switches over to the aux tender. So then you get all the icons that are appropriate for the aux tender. So Let me turn up, make sure the volume's turned up on this.
Almost forgot. Gotta wipe down the headlight. Make her look good for all the buffs.
So you'll hear basically guys that are responsible for maintaining the engine. Kind of maintenance crew kind of dialogue. And you'll get different dialogues based on whether you're using the load or the unload buttons.
Give her a blowdown.
And I'll run through a few of these just so you can hear them.
Clear the train line and wipe down the windows and the mirrors.
And then when in motion, now I don't have much track here, but I will move it a little bit. But it has freight sounds. So it actually uses a similar code base to what we used in the Vision Line reefer cars, so that you get the freight sounds when these cars are in motion. So even if you're not addressing any of the buttons to make the sounds play, these will automatically play sounds when the train is moving. So you get clickety-clacks, bangs and thumps, things like that. And there's all 1.5 inch of clearance I have here on this little stretch. So yeah, that's a great set. I really, suggest if you're a Conrail fan to get this T1. If you're a Conrail fan and you get this T1, I highly suggest getting the aux tender to go with it. Not only does it add a lot to the deco, just to see it coupled to the tender, and kind of completes the look of the train, but with the sound sets you also get a lot more features. Obviously Crew Talk is kind of what we make it. It's not based off of anybody actually talking on a real train. We kind of make it how we like, simply to add more play value to the trains, and adding it into this aux tender in the way we did really increases the play value for the set. So I do suggest getting that if you plan on getting the Conrail T1 as well, or if you get the SP version to go with one of your Vision GSs, another one that looks really good. Last thing that I want to note here with these aux tenders, when you are in the train, if you press rear coupler, you're going to fire the rear coupler on the engine. But if you don't want to do that, say you want to keep the aux tender coupled to the tender, and uncouple from the rest of the train, we'll just use train link. And then you go over to the car buttons, and when you hit rear coupler, it'll throw the electric coupler on the back of the aux tender instead of the back of the engine. So that's one way to have more full train control. Alright, so this wraps up the steam engines that I wanted to show tonight. I'm sorry if I missed probably a good number of questions while I was going through, so if anybody has any quick questions for me they want to ask, here I am. Alright. Well, hopefully the show didn't run so long that everybody was annoyed or anything like that. I just love having fun and showing off the samples. Let's pick up this guy here and flip the camera around so you can see my lovely face once again! Yeah! I need to go back to the office. Anyways. So, if you have any ideas for what you want me to do in future episodes, please let me know. Comment either here on this video or send a message to the Lionel Trains page, or even email talk to us, something like that if you come up with ideas. I want to know what people want to see other than product that's upcoming. If people want to get like a lesson on how to use a GW180 power transformer or something like that, I can do that. I'm not shaving, Zach, sorry. I do have plans for other episodes. I do at some point want to go through features of Station Sound Diners, and I do want to talk about LCS modules at some point. So, yay. Anyways, guys, thanks for all the feedback, thanks for the questions, and I hope you have a good next couple of weeks here, a good Halloween, and make sure to tune in next Wednesday for Ryan's Workbench Wednesday, and I will see you in 2 weeks with the next episode. Thanks, everybody.